In a situation where you find, because of most of the stories that you hear, you find most people who are being who are going through domestic violence per se don't want to express themselves, or don't think that it's bad enough, or don't think, or usually think that, okay, the person is going to change, maybe they're just going through a bad day. That's usually most of the excuses that are given for a person who's going through domestic violence. That unajua akwangi hivyo, by the way, akwangi hivyo, unajua akiwa na hasira wanga anafanya hivyo, and then atabadilika tu. 90% of the time, he's usually a good person, but that 10% is just bad, and he'll change. He'll change. So can you talk about that particular situation of people who are going through domestic violence or any form of abuse, be it physically, mentally, emotionally? Why do they defend this particular situations?
I'll go back to my definition, where it is about power and control. And it is the use of intimidation and causing fear. So most of the people the victims of domestic violence tend to be very fearful.
Yeah.
Remember, their power has been taken away from them. So they feel helpless. Most of them have lost hope. And therefore, they tend to even blame themselves.
Yeah.
Okay, that because remember, for example, and if it is a verbal or psychological, the perpetrator may keep telling you that you're useless, nobody will help you, and when this is said over and over, you tend to believe it, and therefore, the reason why they tend to say, for example, even defend the perpetrator is because they feel they are the ones to blame.
Yeah.
They feel hopeless. They feel powerless. And therefore, there's nothing that can be done. And remember, most of the time, the perpetrators will even threaten them. Hakuna mali utanipeleka.
Yeah.
So they tend to believe this. And this is said over and over. And in some instances, because we said this cuts across even economic status, you find that the perpetrator may be a very influential person. So you may even fear, what can I do to this person?
Yeah.
So I'm better off just keeping quiet. So you keep making excuses for them and hoping that they will change. Unfortunately, most perpetrators do not change. If anything, they get worse. And once they take control from you and feel that there's nowhere you can take them, there's nothing you can do to them, then they will keep controlling you. Yes, so there's very little, most of the time, the victim will feel powerless. And yet that is not the case.
Yeah,
Yeah, that should not be the case.
You've talked about it being a problem from within. So does it have anything to do with self-esteem from the person who is going through domestic violence? Is it a thing that I have to establish within myself to take back my control? Because the only reason somebody will exert control over you is if you let them. So does it have anything to do with self-esteem or confidence, or maybe background that they've faced that allows them to allow other people to exert that kind of power over them? And if so, why exactly is it?
There are many causes that lead to domestic violence. Say, for example, people who abuse substance, they tend to be very violent. Okay. Then we also have people who have low self-esteem.
Yeah.
Because they're not able to communicate and be able to negotiate, for example. So they use force on the perpetrators. Okay. And I think you're right. To a certain extent, although this may not necessarily be the case, people who have low self-esteem may stay longer in an abusive relationship, as opposed to somebody who's probably outgoing, as opposed to somebody who believes they can speak up for themselves and therefore seek help. Okay? But again, you may find in certain situations, somebody who was very outgoing, very bubbly, all of a sudden they're shy.
Yeah.
You know, they isolate themselves from the other people.
Yeah.
And therefore, as a result, they may stay in an abusive relationship or in a situation where there's domestic violence without seeking help. So it is very, very important to always identify help. Where can I get help?
Yeah.
Okay? For example, in churches, We have community policing. We have schools and colleges. We have counselors. So being able to identify this, should be able to help somebody reach out. So it's important for anybody experiencing this to reach out.